Yes.
Great. So we do have some official questions for you, but if I can just give you a minute each to just briefly introduce yourself and more.
That makes 30 seconds.
Brief.
Go ahead.
Introduce yourself.
Well, listen, good evening, everybody. Thanks for making a value-based decision to join us. And I'm here to learn from you and learn what's happening on your side of the universe as well. I'm Jermaine Pharmes. In my day life, I'm fortunate enough to be Director of Business Development and Community Engagement at the New Jersey Economic Development Authority. I know that's a mouthful, but looking forward to the conversation and learning a lot more about what you do and where you are in your space now.
So thank you all for joining us today. I appreciate you having me here. Thank you to Jermaine and Greg for inviting me. My name is Alvin Mallette. I am the Outreach and Education Coordinator for the United States Equal Employment Opportunity Commission. We are the federal agency that enforces discrimination laws in the workplace.
Thank you so much. Okay, the first question. Both of you entered compliance and public sector work through very different academic and professional paths. Can you walk us through what your career journey looked like and what helped you move to that compliance work?
Okay, all right. So a lot of the jobs in the federal government, you have to apply through usajobs.gov. It's a very long process, but it's been worth it because it's a great career. I've been with the USC EOC for 17 years this year. It's been a great ride in a lot of different ways. What brought me here. So I think I was telling Jamila this earlier, like, I don't think anybody grows up and says, I want to work for the EEOC necessarily. And I didn't even know the agency existed. But after some time with the military, I had some friends of mine say to reach out and, look, to work for the federal government. And I was always into history. When I was working on my master's, I studied the civil rights movement and I was looking into that. And so when I saw a position for an equal employment opportunity investigator, I was like, wow, this sounds like something I would really enjoy. And I was fortunate to get hired, and it's been a very good ride since.
Nice. Yeah, my career in compliance was completely by accident. I'm not here to lie to you. So I wanted to be an attorney. That was the two things I wanted to be when they come to your career day and say, what do you want to be? I either wanted to work on Wall Street, I wanted to be a lawyer. I know I wanted to make a lot of money. So, right, if we think of the traditional ways of employment from the different periods that we grew up, right? So we saw police, fire, teachers, administrators, people that worked in business, but the guy in my neighborhood that drive the BMWs worked on Wall Street. I was like, that's for me. So the compliance thing, I was working my way up to try to build a law school profile because we only have 2 law schools in New Jersey. So I was like, my resume and my profile better be damn good, right? 2 law schools. I didn't want to go out of state. I know I couldn't afford it. New Jersey Transit's Office of Civil Rights and Affirmative Action, that's what it was called at that time, was looking for people to bring in because the Hudson-Bergen light rail, the light rail which runs through Bayonne and Jersey City, was coming. And they were looking for compliance oversight people that knew how to do business development certifications. Because I wanted to go to law school, I had a law and policy background. I worked for the city of Jersey City, law department, city clerk's office, and the municipal court because I was like, I'm going to corner the market on experience and then send my resume in already having clerks because I know most people when they get their JD, they go on and clerk. My approach was to just start clerking, work my way up. But I needed money, right? City jobs don't, you got to work your way up. Government game is about longevity. That's how you make money. I threw my name in the hat for New Jersey Transit for a completely different job. And they said, you know what, with your law and policy background, housing code, criminal code, and traffic code. You can pick up the compliance stuff, which comes from federal regulations, which are background pretty quickly, probably. So they interviewed me to be a compliance specialist. And that effectively is how I got into compliance. I worked at New Jersey Transit from 7 to 3 in the morning, then I went to my city job 4 to 12. That's how I got into compliance.
Okay, now from your perspective, how would you define compliance in your day-to-day work time? And how does it differ between regulatory enforcement agencies and business-facing or economic development organizations? Like, how does it differ? Because I know that now you work for the ETA, right, but you still have to consider some of the things that you learned working in compliance in that space. Yeah. So just the differences that you've seen there and then Alvin.
Yeah, so the differences for me is now I'm dealing with money. That's the most direct thing, right? Now I'm dealing with public money, which comes with public policy laws attached to purchasing. That's the most direct difference. Before, law and policy was about stuff tied to the federal regulations for transportation, right? So projects that I worked on, they were considered DOT types of projects. The Hudson-Bergen light rail. I worked on the Tappan Zee Bridge. I think it's called the Cuomo Bridge now, but when we were building it, it's called the Tappan Zee. And other projects that fell under federal guidelines. Also, when the feds give you money, you got to click in for their policies too, based on them giving you money. So the major difference for me was I was doing the compliance from the perspective of just the law and policy side. Now I have to make sure people comply to be eligible for money, whether it's grants, whether it's loan programs, it's things that we have bonuses for. We have bonuses at EDA for different things that you might want to encounter us for, like cannabis development, film, media. So really now it's about how you're lining up to be compliant. So you're eligible for the money. So that's the biggest thing, because when there's money on the table, that's a different type of energy. And that's the type of energy we're into open meetings and start asking questions. So yes.
Yeah. So I'll answer that question a little bit different, just based on my experience in with the US EEOC. So when I first started with the agency, my job was as an investigator. And as an investigator, you would so I'll start this way. So normally when people come to us, they experience some type of what they feel is discrimination at their job. Nobody comes to us because they're having a great day. Something happened, real or imagined, at their place of employment that they're upset about. And that being said, as an investigator, your job is to take the charge of discrimination. So you're going to listen to what they have to say. You're going to counsel them to see if it's covered by the laws that we enforce. And then you proceed with an investigation. You can do interviews. You can analyze, documentation. There's all kinds of different tools that we use to analyze a case. Fast forward, now I'm on the outreach and education side. So what I try to do is now I'm going out and talking to employers ahead of time to make sure they stay in compliance and they don't end up having their employees file a charge against them. What I've really come to realize over the years is that, yes, there are some employers that are bad actors. There are shady people in the world. I'm sure we know some. I'm not saying you work at those places, but I'm saying that I'm sure in your life you've met shady people. And since employers are made up of people, you're going to run into those people. But there's a lot of times where people just don't know the law. And because they don't know the law, they make mistakes, but their mistakes have real effects on their employees. So because of that, now my job and my role currently I go out to advocacy groups and let them know of their law so they can inform their constituents. But I do a lot of outreach to businesses as well, and small businesses like me and Jermaine were speaking of earlier, just to let them know, like, hey, this is what you need to do. If somebody has a disability, you can't just fire them. The right thing to do is to try to see if there is a reasonable accommodation so that they can continue working. And so we try to give them a lot of this information ahead of time through outreach that I do, through webinars that we do, in order to help them stay compliant and so that they don't run afoul of the laws.
So it's kind of rolling into that as well for this next question. Just a little bit more of expansion on it. You worked as an investigator, Alvin, an enforcement supervisor, and an intake supervisor. What skills became most important as you moved from frontline investigations to the leadership, and oversight?
Okay. I think listening is probably going to be one of the key things. I like leadership. I have a passion for it. In addition to my job here, I also work in with the New Jersey Air National Guard. So I've been there for quite some time as well. So I enjoy the leadership part of it. And it's really just trying to listen and hear people out. So whether you're an investigator and you're taking notes and you're trying to get the information from somebody, listening and asking good questions, but then as a supervisor, really trying to listen to your staff and see what their needs are, trying to understand their thought process when they're deciding cases or when they're making decisions, and trying to understand that. Also trying to be responsive to what they need in the workplace to continue to go forward, because as a leader or as a supervisor, which I'm sure many of you know, you're not just managing the work, you're managing personality. So you're trying to make sure you're taking care of these individuals, but also meeting the goals and the needs of the agency themselves. And so you're kind of a middle person and all of that. So there's a lot of that goes into that. So listening is definitely a great skill. Being able to really read regulations effectively and understand those things and interpret those things, those are also very important too. But just when it comes to like you mentioned, just front facing and then behind the scenes, it's there's a lot of people skills that are just in order to be effective at the job that's needed as well.
You focus on supporting businesses and communities while also ensuring programs align with public sector standards. How does compliance show up in business development and community engagement work?
So the compliance shows up by way of, again, even when we create stuff, it's public money behind it. So we create a training program and we give you a scholarship to attend at no cost for you. There's compliance rules that we have to have in place for you to be a participant, right? So it's really about just using the compliance as a measure of preparedness. A lot of times when you go for certain things that have money attached to them, whether it's a program or you want to apply for a grant, there's some level of compliance that's going to come with it, right? You want a grant, there's a compliance. You want to sign up for a training program, there's a compliance that comes with it. It's really just about, and you touched on this, knowing a lot of people fail just by not knowing what they need to be compliant at, right? They usually find out when it's too late and there's a problem, or they missed an opportunity, right? So even some stuff, again, I alluded to this in this career and other careers I've had, there's purchasing law involved. If we tell you the RFP or the bid or whatever it is due on Thursday at 3 o'clock, you can't call me at 3:30 because I'm breaking the law if we entertain your bid and we didn't entertain anybody else's after 3:01. So really having understanding, and this is the area where a lot of discussion is had with small business. It's really about compliance and just having. I know so many businesses that lost opportunities when COVID funds were on the street. Compliance. Hey, we need 36 months of your taxes. You should have about 5 in a holster, right? Everybody's applying for this money. We can't wait for you to track down the same person that everybody's looking for. Everybody's calling their CPA because they're trying to get the money. So just being compliant and doing your diligence, but the business development and the stuff that I'm involved with a lot of programs. I'm involved with 3 or 4 construction programs. They involve oversight, compliance, and making sure that people are lining up so we can help them get the opportunities. So it's critical that they have some understanding. And we use an array of different things, not just what I do. We have a bunch of talented people that I work with. Thank goodness for them. And we have a bunch of outstanding resources. I was just at the African American Chamber event earlier. So, but that compliance part is critical because that's where failure usually shows up when people aren't compliant with something, right? We've all been in school. You got to 8 o'clock class. Nobody's coming to shake you and say you got to get to that class. You don't comply, you're defeating yourself. So it shows up in our daily life probably a lot more than we would want to admit or think about it. But it definitely shows up when you're dealing with public service, public funding. We got to deal with politicians and people that put this stuff in place that are their constituents are depending on you to deliver.
So I have a question. Either one of you can answer it. Many students who student compliance careers are limited to attorneys. Based on your teams and your experience, what non-traditional or non-JD roles exist in compliance and regulatory environments?
Yeah. So
Jump in.
yeah. So for our, I'm not an attorney, and there are many individuals that work through the EEOC that aren't attorneys. We have mediators. You don't have to be an attorney to be a mediator, although some are. The deputy director, the district director, they're not attorneys. Now there are some attorneys throughout the EEOC. There is a whole legal unit that is involved with bringing lawsuits and things of that nature. So there is a very heavy legal side of our house, but the enforcement stuff, generally they're not. I had a bachelor's degree and a master's in African American studies, and that was good enough for them to hire me. So it does help for some positions, but there are a lot of positions where that degree is not necessary, even though we are dealing with legal aspects.
Here's what I found out. You don't need a law degree. Lawyers traditionally don't want to touch certain types of compliance, which means the door is wide open because there's so many different forms of compliance. There's financial compliance. There's compliance oversight for contracts. There's federal compliance on projects. We still have people working for EDA that are still doing federal oversight from Sandy, disaster recovery money, right? Because it has to be oversight and it has to be compliance. You absolutely do not need a JD. You just need to have a working understanding. The background that you get from learning the stuff in these types of curriculums, I've had some conversations, so I heard healthcare or other areas. It's going to prepare you to march into all of these different places. And the way that you really are able to flex what you learn in this program into careers is that you're studying the stuff that is a specialty. So when you become a subject matter expert with the Seton Hall brand behind you, you're walking in the door pretty much saying, this is how much I'm charging you to be here. Because you're not going to be able to go on the street and get somebody that knows what I know. And by the way, attorneys don't want to touch this stuff, right? I'll be candid with everybody here because I'm a straight shooter. Most of the attorneys that jump into compliance, they didn't pass the bar or there was something else and then they wound up doing compliance, right? Most of my career, my superior has been an attorney. And as soon as I got in there, they were like, oh, you know this stuff. Thank goodness. Here you go. But there's fiscal compliance. There's all types of oversight that you do. There's healthcare, there's pharma. Pick something. The other part to you building your career is that you become the translator. Because you're going to be talking to people that don't understand your world at all. It's just like talking to somebody that does IT at a certain level. You're like, what did you just say? Okay, I'm not fluent in it. But the people that pick you up and say, look, I know what they're talking about. I'll help you get to the finish line. They get paid top dollar for that. There are some killer careers all over the place. It's in schools, hospitals, financial, I'm studying some stuff now, Goldman Sachs, all of these different jobs are out there, programs, nonprofits. The door will literally be wide open for you to choose what type of compliance and where you want to aim your career. There's so many different avenues and so much more because of the advancements of technology. You can literally take a compliance job in another state sitting right here in New Jersey.
And just very quickly, just to add, a lot of through the EEOC, when I was doing the enforcement work as an investigator or supervisor of investigators, a lot of the people we're dealing with on the other side, some are attorneys, but others are human resources managers, people that have a long, obviously know that level of compliance that comes with human resources, so they know all that kind of work. So main point there's a lot of people, you don't always need a JD, and with your skills that you're learning here and the Seton Hall brand, you're more than capable to do a lot of those jobs in the government and with the EEOC.
One last comment on it. Very brief. All right, cool. I'll get it. The door is open for you. Younger people don't want to do compliance. It's not sexy. Seriously. You ask the days what they want to do. I want to be a YouTuber. I want to be an influencer. I want to make a lot of money and sit behind a Mac all day. But we know that's not reality. So you are able to use this program and create your brand and craft which way you want to go with it, and then become a subject matter expert. And then the demand will be on you to pick and choose what avenue we want to be in, not the other way around.
That's good. That was good. Thank you. Okay, so for our students, we have JD students and we have our MLS students here. So for them that are looking outside of traditional legal practice, what skills or experiences should they build now to be competitive in the compliance-focused roles?
You know what? Make use of everything the school has to offer. As a fantastic alumni network. The Seton Hall Alumni Network is connected to everything moving in places you're learning and thinking about. Politics, government, healthcare, tech, farmer. There's Seton Hall people sprinkled everywhere, right? Make use of the environment you're in. Make use of all the connections. Whoever doesn't know each other here, make sure you know whoever is in this room with you, sharing this experience tonight. Use LinkedIn and other things. Find people in the space that you want to be in and manipulate using LinkedIn, because LinkedIn is about business. So it gives people half of your profile right there, and they can decide if they want to connect with you, right? So you can find alumni, people that have taken the program ahead of you, people that work in places that you have an interest in, that you want to find out some information about. You will find that a lot of people are willing to share information. And once they see that SH and that school crown, they're going to go, oh, no problem. But what do you need to know? Make use of everything that you have available while you're trying to figure out what your brand is going to be to the next place in your career, whether you get the master's or the JD. Use everything here and then branch out from there. Connect with us. Keep going from there.
So I could echo a lot of what you said, but I'll try to come up with something different and original.
That's why I jumped ahead of you.
So I think people skills are very, very important because they serve you in every facet of life. There's a lot of smart people in the world, but they get stuck right here because they don't have people skills. And I think the ability to speak with people, to talk to people, not to be phony, but to be warm and friendly is extremely important, especially as you move up. So I mentioned that we have a legal department and things like that in our agency. And a lot of them get promoted because they are lawyers, but they don't necessarily have leadership or skills for that. Even in law firms, a lot of places, the office manager is running the people thing because the attorneys don't want to be bothered with it. And so what you're going to find out is that if you have that ability to speak with people, to talk to people, to genuinely connect with people, you're going to get to some point and then just go straight past your peers, because a lot of people don't have that. A lot of people, especially in the legal fields or compliance fields, they're very kind of book smart, but you take them out of that and they kind of struggle connecting with people or being with people. And I'm probably sure in your personal lives, or your professional lives, I should say, that you've met people who are good at the job and they get promoted because they're good at the job, but then they find out they're not good with people. And that is so much of the job, especially as you move up. You do have to have a working knowledge of the laws and how to read those things and how to listen and be good. But if there are leadership skills you can continue to develop, or courses or things like that, you'll find yourself well served as you move up. Okay.
Can you share an example, without getting into confidential details, of a challenging compliance or regulatory issue encountered and how your organization approached resolving it? I took a lot of wind out of that, but
Yeah.
no details.
So a challenge. So the laws, the federal government, they constantly evolve, and a lot of times things evolve with a change in administration. So without getting into too much, things have substantially changed. But it happens with every administration, to be fair and to be honest. And so there are a lot of things that you start to try to navigate and deal with in that space. And so you have to get comfortable being uncomfortable. You have to get comfortable with change and not just saying this is just the way I've always known how to do it. And sometimes to think out the box in those ways. So I'll leave it right there.
Very well said.
Thank you.
Yeah, I got a couple of, I'm just trying to get to the one. I've worked in compliance for a nonprofit agency, a very, very high profile nonprofit agency that I won't name. But part of my job was to audit and do reviews on companies to see if they will be considered eligible to be a minority business, right? And I had a very high profile file in my hand, and I didn't know it. I wasn't, see a lot of these files. I look at it, I call a file for what it is. Person is certifiable, fine. Sometimes there are challenges because of who the person is that's asking for the designation. So I had a very high profile file, and there's part of the review that I have to do a field visit to the office and have a meeting because part of that assessment goes into the file. And I see pictures of this person playing golf with a president I won't name. And I'm like, oh, okay. And I found out that his aunt is a very, very high profile DC person. And I'm getting calls like, when's that going to get done? And this, and that. And now I got to make a judgment on what's right, do my job the right way, right? Or cave into, hey, they want that done yesterday. So I walk into places, I walk out, that's who I am. And I said, look, here's what I'm going to do. I had a meeting with the person, and I was very candid. I said, look, what you're doing is not illegal, but it circumvents the very function that we came up with for the type of compliance that you're asking for. And I just wanted to have a sidebar with you without the people that are calling me. I know that you have some stuff pending. I'm not trying to interfere in that. There's sensitivities in that too, because you could be sued for with economic interference. Somebody will say, I had a pending contract if I would have got certified as a minority business and I didn't get that $15 million because you didn't approve me so now soon. And then that creates a whole different thing. That goes way beyond the scale of whatever I was getting paid for the job. Trust me, it wasn't a lot of money. So you find yourself, depending on the situation, in these types of scenarios, depending on where you work at and what type of policies they got. I know for me, that was one of the more trickier situations, but my decision was just to be very upfront with the person and to give them, to level set with them and give them, the most granular view of this is why you don't meet the standard. And I wanted to give you that courtesy conversation. That conversation helped me diffuse because then that person went back to the other parties and said, look, we can't do it this way. We have to do it a different way. He was very understanding. And I was able to kind of make it, but I had the president of the organization calling me like, that's got to get done, da, 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 da. So you're in these types of situations, where you got to make a judgment call. My thing is to always stick with whatever the laws are of whatever agency I'm working for. Because at the end of the day, depending on what the compliance was, like you deal with federal stuff. If there's something where there's a case or whatever, and they question your ability to make a decision on it, and there's an appeal, you get called in for that appeal, right? So my thing is learn what you got to learn about your craft and stick to exactly whatever policy they have written. It will not fail.
I have a few more questions, but if any of you have questions that you want to ask specifically, I'm more than happy to sit back and let you ask anything that you might.
No questions at this time. Okay, great.
Excuse me, with silence for guilt. I was wondering.
Either we're killing it or we're boring.
Don't get us at the end. Somebody's thinking of something. They're like, what can I ask them that's going to trip them up? So,
Okay, great. So what advice would you give our students who are interested in public sector or regulatory compliance careers but are unsure of how to break in when job postings appear highly specialized?
Yeah,
so I'm talking up too, please.
No, the federal government is tough. It's through usajobs.gov, and that's the way to do it unless you're a political appointee. So, I mean, there are volunteer ways. Like, I have seen people kind of intern, and I think that helps because that gets at least that on their resume, and so at least so when you are applying, at least can list that you have some experience doing that. But everything is through usajobs.gov for the federal employment.
And is there anything that someone could do you think, to distinguish themselves? Because that website, I'm sure, gets flooded. So what is
It does.
beneficial to endorsements, to volunteer, to internships, anything of that nature?
Yeah, the internships, I think that's the biggest thing. I know people have interned. My colleague who was here, David, he started as an intern, and then and now he's the supervisor of all the mediators in the district. but he did start as an intern. So internships are a very good way. And networking and just getting involved and just, those are different things that you can kind of put, EEO things on your resume. I mean, I'm just talking forward. There's obviously tons of federal jobs. I'm just talking with my agency. If you can kind of put that in your resume that you have some, familiarity with EEO, I think that then, yeah, when they go through algorithms and stuff like that, then that because that's how a lot of things are done, especially on that level. At least if they see EEO or familiarity, I think that helps. So that or EEO courses or things like that would be helpful.
Jermaine, what about you?
Yeah, pull out all the stops. So if you're a part of something, make sure that's known, right? If you're in a sorority, a fraternity, a special club, anything that you do community involved wise, these are the things that help you get extra clicks when recruiters are looking, right? Because they're making an assessment of not just who you are in terms of, they're gonna look at your resume and say, okay, this is what the person is telling us that they do and what their skill level is. Those other things give them a different view of you. It tells them how you're gonna deal with people. You work, you volunteer at the local food pantry, you help your church. Those are the other adjectives and descriptives that they look at and go, oh, okay. Because nowadays, when you're looking to get hired, that decision is made by probably 4 to 5 people. Today's interview is no less than 3 people. HR wants a piece of you, the hiring manager, and whoever's team you're gonna impact, working closely with them, they want to send in too. And then legal shows up, and then whoever else might join the party. And now you're looking at 4 to 5 people that have to sign off on you joining. So they're looking and making assessments of all these other things that you do. I do a lot of stuff in my community. I'm a Rotarian. I meet people, oh, you're in Rotary. Instant exchange. Now I have an ally, right? You don't know that the person reading that from the company or the agency or the recruiting company, they might be in one of these lanes. You might be in the same fraternity or sorority or the same club that they were in college. And they go, oh, right? It's like bumping into somebody and their birthdays are in the same time as yours. And you go, oh, you too, right? And you just build off of that one commonality. So it's all a factor when you're doing research on agencies and other things that you want to connect with, right? And again, this alumni network is rich. There's so many people. Trust me, when I get into certain things, I call somebody from Seton Hall on the other end of that. 9 times out of 10, seriously, just make use of everything that makes sense and line it up. Like I said, LinkedIn is an ally. I told some of you here, I attend Columbia University. The minute I put it on my thing and I start getting inboxes. And then I use those connections to say, I'm in this program, pre-doctoral, who do I take? Oh, when you going summer? Take this, take this, take this. This is cool. Oh, Hillary Clinton usually comes to guest speak around this time of year. I started getting a wealth of info just by connecting, right? So use everything available while you're prospecting. People are dying to tell you how it is at certain organizations. Just ask them, hey, I'm thinking about applying at such and such help. How is it over there? Let me tell you, floodgates open, right? Not that you will use only their assessment, but it's good to hear some insight, right? Organizations, some people will say they hate organizations, some people will say they love it. So you don't want to take one person's, but you look at somebody's profile on LinkedIn, they've been with the agency 10 years, they probably are telling the truth, right? They've been here 10 years. So if they're telling you they like it, they must like it. But use every resource available. And if it's that you can't connect to them, connect to somebody that is connected to them. And then have that person kind of make that intro. And because it's professional, it's usually an easier lift because the person knows you're trying to connect with them in a personal, or not a personal way, but a professional way. So
I have one other thing I want to add, because I was thinking here. The other thing is, if your goal is just to work with the federal government for whatever reason, maybe you want a pension or something like that, understand that there are other things you can kind of do on the state or city level too. So for argument's sake, you can work for the New Jersey Division on Civil Rights. That might be, this is a state agency that does what we do, or so that may be a better, way forward to kind of get in some of that initial experience, so that when something you do see through the federal government opens up, you may have a better opportunity. If your goal is to work at HUD, then maybe you start at Jersey City Housing Authority, and then you kind of move up and do something else. And so some of these jobs, cities and municipalities may not pay maybe as much as you want up front, but some do, depending on what you do, especially if you get into something a little bit more specialized compliance wise. But that may make the jump up to federal level if you want to do something later a little easier. So I just wanted to add that.
So what are some common misconceptions people have about working for the government or public sector clients, and how did it differ from reality once you got there? Or did it?
I'll jump in. So here's the misconception, right? I've been on the other side of it, actually, right? Dealing with government agencies. even though I've worked in government most of my career. So I'd say 80% of my career has been in government. The misconception is about work performance, how you're encountered at certain agencies. And I tell people this still, right? Working with other agencies, because I'm like, I know what I got to go through to try to reach you. So how is the public going to be able to reach you? So some stuff that you come across with government agencies will start to add up, and you'll be like, yeah, that's kind of true. But here's the science behind it. You have a civil service employee that has had their job, and a lot of these cases in government, municipal, county, state, they've been doing their job for the last 20 something years. So they just do their job the way they do their job, right? We've been in agencies where if you have to go, like, let's say DMV, and you're like, oh, this was a little bit better of an experience because I don't have time to camp out all day now. I don't know if some people remember, going to DMV was like a day off.
Yeah.
Like, I just gotta get my license renewed, and I'm gonna be here 4 to 5 to 6 hours, take a lunch, come back. Like, this is a shift of work. So there's a lot of misconceptions about different agencies. I'm proud that I'm with a rock star of an agency. I mean, we are truly the Swiss Army knife of like how the community receives help, everything. Like I said, cannabis, film, development, construction. I mean, if you pick something, EDA is involved with it somehow. We're either housing the money, we're providing compliance oversight for all of these projects. Like I said, we still have Sandy recovery people working for us. And this is what, 14 years later?
Yeah, 2012.
Right?
Yeah.
14 years later. So off one project, you are making a sustainable career to still be working 14 years later off of this one occurrence, right? Think about that. So some of the misconceptions are that, because they're not really doing everything. But I know a lot of people that are still, it's not abnormal at all for me to still be upstairs in my office at this time. Be very honest. So, some of the stuff, it comes with people reading the people that have been in government for a long time and saying, look, some people do lose their enthusiasm, but I think that's just a misconception externally. Anybody that's been doing something a long time, they just do it their way. But there are a lot of hardworking people in a lot of these agencies, and there are a lot of positions to fill. So choose wisely, be very strategic, because the traditional ways, this kind of falls under traditional employment, specialized compliance, right? Younger people don't want to touch it, right? They just don't. Fast food pays $20 an hour now, and they don't want those. That's just today's reality. There's so many different things to do for careers, and those are not the careers people want. But there's a wide open door for you at all levels of government. People are retiring at major agencies, New Jersey Transit, Port Authority, MTA, the shipping government. Some people left, that created open doors. We're hiring for some key areas now. So just be strategic. Look and study each agency, what it offers you. Make your projection, how long I want to be here. Be realistic with yourself. Do I want to be with this agency for a long time? Do I want to build a pension like you alluded to? How is that pension? What's it going to look like when the smoke clears? These are all valid things to look into, prospecting a government career, but don't get caught up into a lot of misconceptions that happen externally. Do your own research and, do your fact finding, and you'll find some additional stuff that's not at face value.
If I have one last question. This is a trickier one. So looking ahead.
I'll be first. Tricky.
Looking ahead, how do you see the compliance and regulatory landscape changing over the next few years? And what should students do to be as prepared as possible to be the future of compliance?
All right. So I think that the changes so there's always going to be change, right? There's always going to be change. People maybe started in government service in the 80s who were scared of email, right? And now everybody uses it like it's nobody's business to where children can, are comfortable using technology. AI seems to be the next thing on the frontier.
I know it's here.
So what is it? The future's here. It's just not evenly distributed. So if you know those kinds of things, it will give you a technological edge. That'll be helpful. That you'll be very comfortable with those things. So I think that you just look over the landscape and you see what's new, what's innovating, what's coming out. And I think that the better you can familiarize yourself with that, the better you'll be. And by familiarize yourself, being comfortable, kind of to piggyback off of the last thing you mentioned, there are some people in government that are just comfortable doing things their way because they've been there so long. And if we're going to be honest, I think we're all like that in some ways, right? Like we have a certain way that, I clean the house and that's the way I think it should get cleaned, And so that's kind of the way people are. I want to leap back into the previous question because I didn't get a chance to answer.
Oh, I'm sorry.
But that's fine. But I agree a lot. I think there is a trope of lazy government workers. And I think no, there is. It's a trope. There were multi-billionaires saying that government workers were lazy and we needed to cut the federal government and these other things. And I'll be honest, the workforce is the workforce. There are people at a job who are high workers, high performing, and they love working hard. There is a broad middle of people, and there are people who probably shouldn't be there. And that is not just in the government, that is in everywhere. It's in everywhere, and I can say that with authority because I've seen these charges that come to the EEOC. And there are people who, and not everybody's discriminated against. Sometimes they're just bad workers. And they're just saying that, well, it must be because of my race or gender, disability or age or whatever. But no, it's because you're terrible. And you probably should have left, or they probably should have been got rid of you, but they didn't. And that's just the honest to God truth. And at least the people that I've encountered in government, a lot of people are really there because they do enjoy the mission. They really enjoy the mission, or they really enjoy helping people, or they really feel like they're doing something worthwhile. And that has been my experience. A lot of people could have taken these buyouts and things with the federal government, but there's a residual of people who are still there because they really believe in the work they're doing. And I think that if you go to any government, city, federal, state, you're going to find that there is a large swath of people who really love what they're doing. These are people who work on weekends. These people who are working in the evenings, who are putting in the extra work that they're not getting paid extra for, but they enjoy what they do and they believe in what they do. So I just wanted to add that. No, you're fine.
But you know what, just on one thing you said on the back end,
Okay.
I mentioned civil service for exactly the reason you said it, right? You said bad performance, they probably need to go. But civil service protection, I mean, it's very tough to get rid of somebody. So you have to have like the most valid of valid reasons to get rid of somebody that's protected under civil service, especially if they're tenured, right? So those are the ones that, and I'm saying this objectively, usually develop a certain way that comes off as they don't care or they're not doing their job because they go, I'm Teflon now. What are you gonna do to get rid of me, right?
Yeah.
So if there's, and you know this, if there's drug use, we'll offer you rehab and availability to try to help you repair, but you won't lose your job, right? If something happens and it's by way of, let's say, a mental episode, we're still going to help you. There's so many different routes before you actually lose your job. So I think some of the commonplace issues people have where they say they don't perform or they give that blanket statement to say government work, it comes from the people that are in those places that take a certain attitude, right? So
Yeah, there's some value to that.
so because if you work in corporate and you fall into those categories, they just go, thank you. Nice.
Sometimes.
Right. And
But there are people in corporate that hang around and they shouldn't be there either. But because my brother is in charge,
right.
I get to hang out longer than I should.
Right.
Those
But when
things
your
exist.
brother's not in charge, the security goes, thank you, and they
Oh,
take
yeah.
it.
It's a little easier.
And there's
Yeah,
more
it's
people
easier.
that their brother's not in, or a sister, or whoever's not in charge. And yeah, so, but just in government, it's a little bit tougher to work on board.
But that's because of political. A lot of it is because of
That's a different night.
That's round two. Beautiful, thank you so much. I think.
Oh, we want to open it up for questions from the audience.
Hey.
I had a quick question. So right now I work for a healthcare company and I do compliance, but I do it on the IT side, governance risk and compliance. But-
Answer the last question. You skipped me on the last question. So I want to answer that question. I'm sorry, go ahead.
But I guess my question is, always looking for the next thing, the next step, always having that exit strategy ready when it needs to be. What is that type of, I guess, job like, or do you guys touch any of that? I guess data infrastructure, things like that with what you guys do, either in the state or the federal, where you come in contact with that operationally at some point.
Yeah, we have to. We've taken applications from people that have like their whole life on it because you're applying for public money. Even the fact that we give you money is public.
Yeah.
Right. So we have to have a internal structure and a contracted party that's an external structure.
Okay.
But there are a lot of things that people don't think about until something happens, right? So what happens when we've all been breached, whether it's your bank or somebody goes, you get that little postcard and they're like, hey, we meant to tell you like 6 months ago we had a breach. This stuff's been on the street, but we're gonna give you this free subscription to this monitoring program to, just in case somebody tries to act like they're you, right? We all been privy to it because all our information is in banks and government agencies and all these databases. So yeah, we definitely have infrastructure dedicated to the protection of just keeping the integrity of the stuff we store and the stuff that we're working on, which, even though we're public agencies, some stuff falls into the very legal matter because we deal with appeals and a whole bunch of other things, regulatory, because we're overseeing compliance, we're in charge of money. Cannabis in New Jersey, that's EDA. We have New Jersey Leaf coming out Monday. That's a program that's going to put a couple of million on the street to help businesses in the cannabis space. But cannabis is not federal.
Yeah.
right? So, but that's gonna be part of the question I answered that should skip me.
Alright.
So, but from where I sit, yes, absolutely. There's careers to build into that. And it's the very unsexy back office stuff
Mhm.
that we depend on every day.
Yeah.
We depend on somebody that we'll never see to make sure they're doing their job, right?
I thought you had something else.
No, oh, but I didn't know if she was asking a question. Yeah.
Okay.
But did that answer?
No, definitely. All right, thank you.
Looking ahead,
There we go.
how do you see the compliance and regulatory landscape changing over the next few years, and what should students be preparing for as a future compliance?
So I'll be quick. So look, it's changing every day. Whether it's federal, whether it's local, pick whatever lane you are wanting to get into, get abreast of the now policy and start projecting what changes are gonna be there. So like we do cannabis, now we have to have oversight for cannabis. How do we regulate it, right? AI regulation, jump in. It's gonna happen on every level, municipal, county, state, fed, right? Because now it's just a runaway train.
Yeah.
They get use it at will in certain respects in corporate. But again, we have to utilize it and regulate in a different manner on the government side. We only need one runaway train mistake and everybody goes, what happened? Well, who was in charge?
Mhm.
Who was supposed to be managing this? How are we managing it to make sure that there's no bias included? Right? We're giving stuff prompts. So remember years back when Wikipedia showed up,
Yeah.
we didn't know people were just putting like you start reading, right? You start reading some of the stuff now, you go, what's putting stuff on there, right? But what happened? They had to regulate it because I was reading stuff that I know I had historical data on and going, who the heck typed this? Right? Then we found out somebody could hack it. You could put simple stuff like who's Tom Brady father? Eli Manning. Right. So you look on this Wikipedia page and it's like, yeah, Tom was raised by Eli Manning before he lost it twice.
Yeah.
So, you know, there's all different types of lanes for you to consider. A lot of stuff, just make yourself abreast of it now. AI, you got to know how it works, how it's manipulated. Your career can be translated to the people that don't understand AI
Yep.
on how it impacts their organization, how it helps them grow, how to protect themselves from it,
Yep.
because they don't know how to manage it, use it, manage data associated with it, etc. You become the translator. Your compliance career can serve you as a translator to the people that don't want anything to do with it. They just want to go to you and say, how do we solve it? What do we do? And then you charge them
Mhm.
for that knowledge because you're the subject matter expert, right? And that's why subject matter experts get paid. So you have this direct opportunity to chart how you want that to be, right? If you go to a foot specialist, that person is paid because they're a foot specialist. They focus, this is what they went to school for, this is what they're going to tell you about. So there's all type of opportunities that are going to be untapped because we are going to need so much regulation for stuff. And I don't want to say it's the slight you because I know you're a federal employee.
Okay.
There's a lot of stuff that we're going to need to change back when this current administration leaves us.
Yeah.
Because the thing is, changes happen. They happen at all levels. I'm going through changes now. We have a new governor. I have a new CEO, new chief of staff, new this, pick someone. Thank goodness I still got the same boss, right? But change is here for us. But at all of these different levels, you get to be translator. Like I'm translator of sorts now to tell the new administration what happened before they got here, right? So you get to be translators for all of these different lanes. But pick something, whether it's AI, anything regulatory. Cannabis is not federal, but if once enough states get it, they're gonna say, look, let's take it federal so we can get some money over. Because there's revenue involved in it. And look, we know they've grown it in other states. It's just there's no policy for it. There's somebody on a farm down there selling it to everybody. It's nothing regulatory, but once people say, you know what, we're gonna tax. Now they need people like you that come and say, here's how you provide structure to this so we can do it the right way. We've had it for some years in New Jersey. We're still working out the kinks. Thank goodness we have talented people involved to say, this is how we get from here to here. But some stuff we're still figuring out because it's new territory. So just pick something that's like here or that's coming, but make sure you include the learn value of manipulating and knowing AI. It's going to make whatever career you pick in this compliance space that much more better. And it's going to increase what you can charge, whether it's an employer, whether it's somebody that wants to contract you. And oh, it's fantastic because now you get 5 people that contract you and you can tell all 5 people the same thing. One quick example before I turn it back to Jamila. This happened. So remember, all of the construction projects had to be green energy projects. Remember LEED and all the stuff blew up. No, the project is. But then who's saying that the construction project meets the standard? Compliance people. So what an architect and design people have to start doing, getting LEED accreditation. They had to go to school and get different levels of LEED accreditation to be the subject matter experts to offer compliance and oversight to say, this project is a green project at this level. Because there was money associated. How much federal money they were going to give to a project based on the LEED accreditations and other things. This AI and these untapped zones that we're going to get into, cannabis and other places that will start to pop up in other states, those are your opens. And there it is.